disease, soil, drought. Each season bringing new challenges farmers hope they won't face. Agriculture reporter Marcia Gorel follows the successes and failures of Saline County crops. She and University of Missouri Extension agronomist Wayne Crook will look at what's stunting local growth, what nudges farmers closer to productive harvest, and the science behind mid-Missouri fields.
I want to welcome you to the 4th episode of Crop Concerns for Video. I'm Marcia Gorel, the agriculture reporter at the Marshall Democrat News, and I'm here in northern Saline County with Wayne Crook, our extension agronomist. And we're going to take a look at the soybean field and look at a few diseases. He's going to be able to show us a few examples of diseases today. And well, Wayne, while we were up here, you found a few just along the edge of the field, and you can kind of point to some of them and tell us how other farmers can look for them themselves.
Okay. Right now, this is really a good time of year to be scouting your fields when you're in the combine, because you get to travel every square foot of the field, and it gives you a chance to see what's going on in every square foot of it. You're going to see problems in the combine you can't see from the edge, or something you won't have to walk out and see. But mainly when you start noticing something in the field that is different or unique, that's what you need to notice. Right now, one of the most obvious things is we have a lot of problems with resistant weeds showing up. Right. And those should show up in the field. Some of them will show up from the road, but till you actually get out in the field, you don't know which weed it is, or how severe the problem is, or how widespread it is. You can make notes on this when you get ready to do your planting for next year. Then you can design your herbicide program and management program so you can manage them better.
And I know a lot of combines now have places where monitors where you can note it as you're driving by, so that's helpful too. So
right, it also might help you manage what you harvest in which order. If you've got a field that you know you have resistant weeds in, you really ought to harvest it last if you can, so you don't spread the resistant weed seed across every other field that follows that one field.
And what other things can they look for while they're combining?
One of the easiest things to notice is the difference if you have more than one variety in the field, watch the performance of the different varieties compared to each other. Some may be stronger yielders, some weaker, some may be more susceptible to diseases or insects than the other. And this can help in your variety selection for the next year too.
Okay. How about wet spots? Isn't that a good time to find spots that maybe don't drain as well as others?
Right. If you've got areas in the field that aren't performing as good as the majority of the field, it could be lack of drainage, it could be poor nutrient balance in that part of the field, it could be due to a different soil type in that part of the field. It could also be due to compaction. Maybe you worked it a little bit wetter than you did the rest of it, and it's compacted.
Right.
And that's why the field's not working right. So these are various things you can look for just as you drive through the field.
Right, and so this is a really good time to get planning for next year, right?
Right, it'll help a lot.
Okay. And why don't you show me, you showed some diseases that we've kind of talked about through the weeks, and we've got some good examples here, I think.
Yeah, this one right here has a leaf, example of frog eye leaf spot. We really haven't had much of it this year, but I looked at some fields down south of I-70, and some of them probably had this on the top foot of every single plant in the field. He hadn't sprayed it, and he was wondering if that was a problem, but he had as much as 20% defoliation from the frog eye he had on his field.
So how does that translate to yield, I guess?
It depends what time of the year. His stuff was late planted. He could lose a little yield, but he's running into length of season problems with the cool weather, and he's just going to run out of time sometime soon. So he's got potential maybe 5% yield loss at the most.
Okay.
But even spraying at this point is not going to help because the disease is spreading. Another problem we have with frog eye leaf spot is last year they found some varieties, some varieties of the frog eye that were resistant to the predominant fungicide being used to control it in Kentucky.
Right.
This year they found that in southeast Missouri.
So there may be some resistance problems. People that are using fungicide in their fields, they may have to look into that and see if they've got some resistance problems. problems?
class of fungicides that they're resistant to are the strobilurin in fungicides,
Okay.
and it's the one that's the most widely used. So if somebody is looking at a field, they notice they got a lot of frog eye and it's doing a lot of damage, and they sprayed it with the fungicide, we need to know so we can check and see if it is a resistant strain of the fungus or not.
Okay, so you want people to contact you if that's happening?
Yeah.
Because,
Yeah.
okay, and you said southeast Missouri is where
Yeah.
they found it so far?
They found it and identified it in the lab to make sure what it is.
Okay, so hopefully it won't get here, but that's something to look for this year.
It's spreading, that's the bad part.
Okay,
And as people use more fungicides, it's more likely to show up too.
right, okay.
So-
And we also found something called green stem. Can you tell me a
Yeah.
little bit about that? And we just found one stem.
Yeah, this is a classic example here. A soybean plant produces carbohydrates to produce seed. If it doesn't have an adequate seed load, the stem will stay green. It just doesn't have room any place to go with a carbohydrate. This stem right here has a virus which makes the plant sterile. There's not a single pod on that right now, but you can see the plant just as healthy as it ever did and just as green. This plant will not, I take it back, it's got one pod on
Yeah,
it.
I saw the one pod.
But you're going to see plants like this out in the field, and if you see a lot like this, you may think that the field just isn't ready. But you actually need to get out and look at the pods themselves, because actually in this field here you can find brown pods, which means the plants are physiologically mature. They've got all the dry weight they're ever going to have. They just need to dry down to harvest, and that's it. The yield is made.
Right.
But if you're seeing green stems out there, this could be due to a lack of pods. And we've also had the same kind of plants show up due to stink bugs. And if you got any lights around the field, like a pole with a night light on it,
Right.
if you look around that pole, those beans will stay green all fall till the frost kills them.
Well, part of that's because soybeans are light sensitive, right?
Right. They mature based on the length of night. If they have no night, they don't mature.
Okay. Okay. And you said that you thought that a virus could cause this, though. Can it be widespread? I mean, we just found one example of it in the middle of all the other plants, but can it be widespread? Can it be a widespread problem?
I've never seen a widespread. There's been reports. It's based on the insect load aphids.
Okay.
We haven't had any aphids, so I doubt it's ever going to happen. There's about 4 different viruses that attack beans. If you hold this up to light, you can see a yellow mottling. But you have to hold it up to light and look at just right. See if you look at that one.
Right. I see some.
That's an indication of the virus. On a lot of the viruses, like soybean pod mosaic virus, these will actually crinkle like they were hit with a herbicide, 2,4-D.
Okay.
Look like the same kind of symptoms on the leaf.
Is this something we spray for, or we can spray for, or we need to?
No, you can't spray. You can spray for the aphids, but you can't spray for the virus. There's no viricides out there.
Okay.
Also, some of these viruses are transmitted in the seed. So it'll be in there when you get it, and you can't do anything about it when it's in the seed already.
Speaking of seeds, we talked about earlier, sometimes you'll find a purple seed when you're picking your, or cutting your beans.
Yep.
That's caused by a disease also, you told me.
It's an organism called Cercospora,
Okay.
seed and pod blight. And when you see it on the leaf, it'll look something like a sunburn.
I thought we
had one, didn't we?
yeah.
Anyhow, the leaves will get kind of a reddish cast to them. This is one that's pretty well dead, but they'll get like a reddish cast, like this right here. Here's one. You can see that red coloring on there. That is the Cercospora. Sometimes it will get into the pod, and when you harvest the seed, you got a red discoloration around the hilum on the seed, and that's a seed blight, Cercospora seed blight. But this is what it looks like on the leaves. It really doesn't damage yield. There's not very much of it out here, and all it does is affect the quality of the seed a little bit, but they don't dock for that, except maybe if it got excessive in seed beans.
Okay.
That'd be about the only time you'd have to worry about it.
But usually you just see one purple seed every once in a while, one purple bean. So,
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, there usually isn't much to cause a problem, but when you see this, you know it might be a possibility. But I haven't seen much in the last 4 or 5 years, actually.
Okay. Well, we've moved to another location here in northern Saline County, another soybean field, and we found a few more diseases that Wayne was going to show us some samples of. So you found one just right away, you said.
Yeah, this one was sticking out in the field. The indicator was when you looked at it, the top of the plants, the leaves had died but hung on. When a plant matures, normally these leaves fall off. So if you see a plant in the field, the leaves are still on it. It didn't die naturally. Then when you look at the base of the plant, you see this brown discoloration along the stem. And then when you split the stem open, you can see the brown part of the stem here, where the center of it's brown, and then the healthy part is white. This is more likely Phytophthora root rot, late season Phytophthora root rot. And it probably is, these beans are going to be small. Not as many beans per pod, one seed there, one here. So this will cause some yield loss. The best part is there's very few plants like this out there.
Right.
Overall.
Now, what would cause it to have lots of them? I mean, to have lots of plants in the field and we just find one, what's the difference?
Phytophthora is what they call a water mold. When it is really wet and it stays wet a long time, the spores of the fungus move around into the soil. Usually when the plant's underwater or got a lot of water on it, it's stressed, and it's easier for the spores to get into the plant and infect it.
Okay.
So you see a lot more of this in wet years, but particularly you see it in wet areas or compacted areas, because compacted areas don't drain either.
Right. I think we found this along a ditch here.
It was right
around here, so probably.
And right along the edge of the field, probably there was a wheel track.
Okay.
And that's probably what caused it right there. But this is another one. If you can see the plants with the leaves still hanging on, it didn't die naturally. That's another thing to look at when you walk through the field. I mean, harvest it. You see a large area that has leaves on it. There's something there that caused that plant to die. It didn't die a natural death.
So this is something else you can scout from the seat of your combine or your grain cart or whatever you're driving through the field. So.
Right.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Wayne. This has been the 4th edition of Crop Concerns for Video, and I want to thank our video photographer, Sarah Reed, and I also want to thank Central Missouri Agri-Service of Marshall, Malta Bend, Blackburn, and Slater for sponsoring this episode. Thank you.